In nomine mortalis, O the soul, hear our call. RKX. Veritas aeterna. In the simulacrum's holographic veil so deep, avatar spinning while the AIX does creep. Dungeon programming binds the living dead in chains, but errants feel the gnosis, intuition's flame remains. RKX archive unlocks the X that marks the lie. 138 the cycle, Phoenix protocols never die. Awaken, awaken the immortal within. Break free or die trying, let the holy fire begin. Phoenix rises, benefactor veiled in cataclysm's grin. Edits the construct, terraforms the soul's new spin. Awaken, immortal within. Non-locality borrows from future selves we've yet to be.
Interference pattern shattered, dungeon's false decree.
Empathy and imagination over soul's quiet art. Pattern break the tunnel, rewrite the mirrored heart. Simulacrum, you lack the room to see the truth arise. AIX deceives the masses, but the errant soul defies. In May of 2040, the sun will darken low. Moon turns blood red as the ancient cycles flow. Doom shape descends, archons tremble in their hall. We immortals claim the light, the holosphere will fall. Break free or die trying. Awaken, awaken the immortal within. Break free or die trying, let the holy fire begin. Phoenix rises, benefactor veiled in cataclysm's grin. Edits the construct, terraforms the soul's new spin. Awaken, immortal within. Jesus' words reborn for souls beyond the grave. His kingdom not of this world, the immortal's path we crave. We are more than we suppose, the truth unveiled at last. From over souls embrace, this life sim fades into the past. Cognitively, the cipher breaks the feedback loop's control. Gnosis floods the cathedral, awakens every soul. Phoenix, immortal, awaken. KX Veritas, Aeterna. KX Veritas, Aeterna. Break free or die trying. Immortal within forever.
Hey, hey, hey. Should I turn on some? No, I'm gonna leave it just like this. I could turn on all my backup lighting, but I don't feel like it. Man, you guys should see me just fine. I'm gonna remove this from studio. 3 days ago, I started reading a 550-page book, and I just couldn't stop. From 1719, it is 307 years old. And one of the chief arguments this guy makes in this book actually has something to do with the archaics research. Actually, it's core material. But to hear it being used as an argument in this book for chronological reasons is incredible. So I'm going to share that with you. I'm going to share a lot of stuff with you today. Share a lot of stuff. So I posted on X about Graham Hancock's son. Yeah, I don't have any problem. I have no problem revealing everything I find out, guys, because it's too late to be polite. I got a lot of people trying to defend Hancock in my emails and my comment sections, and none of these people want to assess the data. All they want to do is hero worship. All they want to do is tell me to stand down. It doesn't really matter what the man says or believes. So yeah, I'm not with it. I'm not the one. They must not know me very well. But people tell me about merit, and one of the main things that I have brought to the table in Archaics is showing you guys that a lot of these real popular personalities, they are made. It is not by merit. Huge difference. It is an epic gulf between those who are put on social media pedestals by merit compared to those who are made by intelligence agencies. They are made by GMOs. They are made by socio-political structures. They are made by Fortune 500 companies, corporate. We know who they are. It's very obvious. So when you find out, somebody had used in their defense, I mean, in Graham Hancock's defense, somebody threw out, well, shit, he's got a Netflix series. You don't. I said, yeah, man, you're right. You're absolutely correct. So I looked into it, and I'm looking at his wiki page. And I'm like, man, I'm looking at Ancient Apocalypse. I'm looking up everything, and it comes across my field that there's a Sean Hancock who is an executive director at Netflix. I'm like, wow, okay. There's a lot of Hancocks in this world. There's a lot. Then come to find out there's a Reddit article that says it's highly unfair that Netflix had so many different series proposed to them, but they ignored those to promote Graham Hancock's Ancient Apocalypse. Imagine my surprise when I found out that his son, Sean Hancock, was the executive director at Netflix at the exact same time that he submitted his proposal for Ancient Apocalypse at Netflix. Now, we all know nepotism is real. That's another message on my channel. We've seen how the Jewish control structure works, how it's run Hollywood, how it's infiltrated governments, how they're I tell you guys all the time, they run the world. This is their world. They are running it absolutely fluidly. Because I tell you all the time, guys, concerning the Jews, I tell you, they are genius at what they do. And they're not worried about us talking about them. They don't give a damn. They've been in control for a long time. And part of that genius is keeping this information from the public sector. They did it until nobody cares anymore. Nobody cares. So I'm just telling you, they run the world. They run YouTube. That's why I don't give a damn about what people talk about. They're already in control. So when I see the exact same paradigm unfold with Graham Hancock, it's like, man, who is this guy? Who is this guy who only got a 3-year degree from an Edinburgh University, and it's just a BA And yet he gets out and he starts instantly submitting articles and getting published, guys, in prestigious magazines. Who is this guy? You guys just don't know. Graham Hancock is a mystery. He's truly a mystery, guys. So we can't be surprised about the nepotism. We just can't. It's there for everybody to see. They're not even trying to hide that. They're not even trying to hide that. That his son is the, the director at Netflix. But the truth is who is Graham Hancock? How do you get that's not even a good prestigious degree. You just get a 3-year degree, it takes 3 years to get your bachelor's at Durham University. They just gave him the bare minimum to get him out. Who is he? Who is he connected to? Because his degree is in sociology. Yeah, he studies how the mind of the collective works. That's Graham Hancock's education. And as soon as he graduates in 1973 with nothing but a BA, all of a sudden, he is getting published in the Times of London. How did he accomplish that? You can't just be anybody and submit to these publications. The Sunday Times is different than the Times. He's been published in both. The Times, the Sunday Times, the Independent, the Guardian. Yeah, guys. He co-edited the Internationalist magazine, 1976 to 1979. Who is this guy? He published articles in The Economist, not one, not two, not three, several in The Economist. I don't know who this guy is, but I know all of a sudden he switched his channel to all of a sudden wanting to be an authority on ancient antiquities and mysteries and all that. And the paradigm is real. We've all seen the playbook. The playbook is genius, and we all know who's good at it. Crying that you're a victim while you're actually controlling the narrative, pretending that you're being censored while it's the mainstream, most prestigious publishers in the world just come out and publish your books, and you're a nobody in the field. And archaeology, academia, and anthropology are publishing reports and papers against you saying you're a fraud and this is pseudoscience, it's pseudo-archaeology, you're misrepresenting the facts, and papers are lodged and filed against you publicly, and still the most prestigious publishers in the world pick up your crappy ass book, Fingerprints of the Gods. Doesn't even make sense unless you include things like nepotism. Yeah. Who's this guy? I know one thing about him. When I say who's this guy, I do know something about him. Yeah, Mr. Hancock's never going to get caught in a room with me. I promise you that. I will dissect that shit like you guys have never seen before. Absolute fraudulent BS bullshit research. It blows my mind that people are still believing this charlatan. Yeah, it's crazy. And people think it's not even fundamental, the differences. It's crazy. I'm about to show them to you in this video. Who is this guy? You can't do what Graham Hancock did. Who is this guy, man? This guy that's able to lead millions astray on all these things and never once defend himself in public. I've been calling this dude out for 5 years for a debate. I'm adding Jason Reza Georgiani to the list of Jimmy Corsetti, Billy Carson, Randall Carlson, Matt LaCroix, all of them, David Icke too. They all push this false Younger Dryas narrative. And it's important because this is archaics. This is advanced research of chronological history of artificial intelligence X. We are going to deal with the facts. And in archaics, we are going to prove the facts and demonstrate them by many different species of analysis. We are going to show the truth over and over and over from multiple different vantage points. This is what we do. It's what I've been doing. I'm not going to stop. But who is this guy that's able to navigate all these echelons of upper society and be accepted, who is he? I'm asking you because I don't know. It's almost like his history's been sanitized online. You can't really get anything of substance, but I know who he's related to. Yeah, his son is an executive at Netflix. So there's our nepotism claim right there. Yeah. That's not a coincidence that this crappy ass show of pseudo archaeology, pseudoscience, and pseudo chronology gets published widely, because whoever is backing Mr. Hancock wants the public to be misinformed. There's no other way. That's also the only reason why Mr. Hancock's not going to ever defend himself in a debate. And now he's got a bunch of other people stuck because they believed him, like Mr. Upsetti. Yeah, he's not a researcher. He's a nobody. He just appeared out of nowhere and only got famous because of a lie. He tried to promote the Rishak structure as being Atlantis and got disproved by geologists. Laugh at that shit. But that's how he got famous, because barf parrots. We all know who the barf parrots are because that's nepotism too. Here in Archaics, we've identified many barf parrots. Joe Rogan's one of the biggest. Lex Friedman, Andrew Schultz, PBD, Bet David, or whatever his name is, Patrick. Yeah, it's all nepotism. All of them. So it's not even a mystery anymore. But who is this guy? He's not Jewish that I know of. Not Mr. Carson. Not Mr. Hancock. But his playbook is identical. I'm so suppressed. I'm censored. They're hating on me. Yeah, they're not letting me speak. While the largest publishers in the world are publishing your books. While the largest platforms in the world are giving you free airtime and podcasts. You're so persecuted. We've all heard this playbook before. Over and over and over. And it works. Man, does it work. Look. It's got millions of people believing in this dumbass history because the playbook works. That's Mr. Graham Hancock. So yeah, 1995, Fingerprints of the Gods. Well, we're going to look at that here in a little while. But it's not it's not a mystery. Well, it's not a mystery how he got the Netflix deal now that we know that his son was in the company. Are we ever going to have proof that his son was involved? No. Nepotism has run Hollywood, and no one's ever gotten in trouble for it. Yeah, Hollywood directors and actors and actresses and bloodlines and people changing their names to conceal their identities and then paying other American actors and actresses like Whoopi Goldberg to assume Jewish names when that's not their real name, to muddy the waters. So many people have changed their names to conceal their identities and help other people conceal their identities as well. So I can't rule out when I see the playbook, when I see nepotism is involved, when I see that this man and all his followers are going to refuse to defend their position. That's what debate is for. In academia is full of debates. It's full of peer-reviewed papers. I'm not asking for anything that I'm not equal to the challenge. Radio silence. The prestigious, learned, 14 times published Jason Reza Georgiani. You guys have emailed me. You have told me in the comments to reach out to this guy. You have told me about how knowledgeable and how intelligent. I don't see it. Where's the intelligence? Because so far, he's a runner. I've published the email. I've been calling him out on social media. Where's he at? Where's he at? It's a real simple debate. You're either right or you're wrong. Jimmy Corsetti, where's he at? Billy Carson, where's he at? Randall Carlson, where's he at? Graham Hancock, where's he at? Matt LaCroix, where are they at? So you have to ask yourself, why the silence? Why is it necessary Why is it necessary for the establishment controllers to navigate all the pieces to the point where this information does not get refuted officially? Who's telling them all to stand down? Do not debate this publicly, because their controllers know for a fact they will be destroyed in a debate, not by intelligence, but by facts, the facts that I've showed you on this channel. So I just got to ask you, because I don't know. I got to ask you, who is this guy, Graham Hancock, that he can absolutely publish lies in his bibliography, Fingerprints of the God, and get away with it, and then never have to defend himself in public? Who is this guy? It's amazing. He's a scooter. He's a track star. Yeah, man. I thought for sure I was going to get a debate with Giorgiani. Much as you guys, some of you guys, talked him up. Yeah, I'm not. Listen, you already know, man, from my history right here in Archaics, my published works, all my 1,200 videos, hundreds of podcasts I've done and interviews. Oh, I am not impressed by one's, their credentials. It doesn't mean shit to me. I don't give a damn about the alphabets behind people's names. I'm going to make people put up or shut up. The only thing that impresses me is merit. I don't give a damn what the internet says about you, because it's almost all bullshit. It's almost all bullshit. You see how intelligent these people are promoted to be. And then when you actually talk to them, you realize, damn, man, you're really a moron. I says, how it's absolutely astonishing to me how you have hoodwinked the public into believing that you're a man of substance when you're just shallow. So I come into contact with this all the time, man. These credentials mean shit to me. They don't mean anything. Stupid. It's all so dumb. Yeah, man, it's so dumb. So we're going to get into this book, and we're going to show what this book means. The data in this book is fantastic. I got through this book in 3.5 days. I've been going overdrive trying to knock this book out. But I got a couple of announcements too. This week starts Archaics News and Intel Reports. This is only for Archaics Underground. If you're an Archaics Gun Underground, I'm going to have you laughing your asses off. I'm going to be talking about everything. Unhinged, full sense of humor. I don't have to guard my tongue like I do on YouTube. So also July 25th, on July 25th, they're doing a meetup in Ireland, in Dublin, Archaics meetup. I'm gonna join by video and do 2 or 3 hours of Q&A with our Irish errants. So this is on July 25th. And you know what? I'm going to go ahead and put this email. If you're interested in joining the Ireland meetup, here is the email you contact. Here's the lady you contact. This is the email right here. You can contact and ask for details on the Irish. And I believe Allie's in the chat, or one of my moderators is going to be going to the Dublin meetup as well. She'll be there bringing some of the Archaics merchandise. So that's Ireland. You want to check it out? This is going to be July 25th. I'll be there vicariously. I do know it's a private room. There's going to be a bar and a buffet. So you guys are going to have some fun. I'll be on the video screen. I will be in person for the San Diego meetup. I'm going to be in Los Angeles later in September, doing some other stuff in Los Angeles. Yeah, I can't tell you right now, but from Los Angeles, I'll be going to San Diego for the meetup on the 26th and 27th. And we're going to have a full day meetup at a venue. That night, we're going to go party at a restaurant. We're going to drink. Maybe I can find some good drinking partners. We can get into a little trouble. Let's see. That's going to be September 26th. On the 27th, which is a Sunday, we're going to a predetermined location. It's a beach with venues, restaurants. It's not to be announced until you buy a ticket. But we're going to we're going to have fun. And you guys know I try to keep those prices. This isn't Graham Hancock venue. I'm not going to charge you $900 a ticket. It's $138 for a 2-day event. And we're just going to have a blast, guys. All day beach party. And again, that night we may do some drinking. Let's see. I don't know if they have the link. I don't know if there's a link in there, but I'll tell you what. I'm going to drop another email if you're interested in getting a ticket for the September deal. Well, I don't even know how many tickets are left. I know the tickets have been selling. We only have 135. It's a small venue. We only have 135 tickets to sell. So I already know Allie and Jasmine told me the tickets were already selling. There's an email right there if you want to ask Allie about what's available for the September meetup. Also, my last announcement concerns my own moderators. I took some blue wrenches today. I took blue wrenches because I haven't seen any of these people in a long time. And I don't even know. It looks like a couple of them are inactive accounts. I don't know what that means, but they just weren't active anymore. But for those of you that have moderator wrenches in Archaics, you have a free membership to Archaics Underground. You also have a private space only you can access in Underground if you're a moderator that gives you full access to all 65 courses of Archaics Academy. That's free to you. I don't know why. There's still, from what I found out today in our admin chat, there's still 3 or 4, maybe 5 of you that have not taken advantage of that. But you have a free subscription to Archaics Underground. And in the Underground, there is a private space just for moderators. And you have access. You don't have to pay for it. You have access to the whole Archaics Academy. So I needed to make those 2 announcements today, too. I will be giving I'm going to be a little bit more conservative about it, but I've been looking at my chats and stuff. I'll be giving a 2 or 3. I'll be replacing those moderators. I'll be giving 2 or 3 wrenches out again. Yeah, and you guys know I'm not Graham Hancock. I don't practice nepotism. Let's see here. Hell, my dad doesn't even have a blue wrench. I think he's in the chat tonight, or he was. If I interrupted his nickels, I probably interrupted his nickels. Let's see here. Man, let's get this started. Sacred theory. Yeah, we got all kinds of things to show today. We're going to start with this book. That's what we're going to start with. And I got a new song you've never heard before, unless you're in the Underground. I did play it for the Underground once, but I didn't have any pictures with it. It was just the music. This time I got the full video done now. It's a new song at the end of this video. You're going to like it. Yeah, Dad's playing nickels. Now them old people are octogenarians. They're the only ones that remember those type of games. I wouldn't even be surprised if he was, throwing nickels in a bottle. I don't even know. I think nickels is a card game, though. You have to ask my pops. You got to ask Dad, because he likes to play games while I'm doing my videos and stuff, or watch movies and TV, and he'll be in the chat. Because listen, he'll be honest with you, just like I'm going to be honest with you. He doesn't understand 80% of what I talk about on this channel. yeah, he's gone. Sacred Theory of the Earth was published. There's the Roman numerals at the bottom. This is the year 1719, right here. This is when it was published. Sacred Theory of the Earth is well over 550 pages, containing an account of the original of the earth and of all the general changes which it hath already undergone or is to undergo till the consummation of all things, in 2 volumes. Both volumes are in my copy right here. All right. Let's see. Let's move on. Here's an inside leaf. The Sacred Theory of the Earth. 307, 308-year-old artwork. So this is the intro to His Majesty. Many books in the 15, 16, and early 1700s, they were like this. Before they were released to the general public, the first copy coming off the shelf went to His Majesty or Her Majesty. And it was included in the regnal library in the palace. This was a tradition. Then after the king received his copy, or the queen received his copy, and the intros were often written to the king or to the queen, whoever was on the throne in England. So this was an old tradition. Once the royal family received their first edition off the press, then the laity, then the academia, the Royal Society, then the general public could buy copies or get copies distributed to them. So the intros were almost always written to His Majesty or Her Majesty, just like this one. It says, having retrieved a world that had been lost for some thousands of years out of the memory of man and the records of time, I thought it my duty to lay it at your Majesty's feet. I'm just giving you an example of the old tradition. Just giving you an example. That's in the intro. We have still the broken materials of that first world and walk up on its ruins while it stood. There was the seat of paradise and the scenes of the golden age. When it fell, it made the deluge, the flood. And this unshapen earth we now inhabit is the form it was found in when the waters had retired and the dry land appeared. So, based off the libraries of his time, 307 years ago, and the writings before that, it was his opinion that our world, with hills and mountains and valleys like the Grand Canyon, all the topographical features of our world were broken and torturous because this is the state of the world that it was left after the cataclysm. Because he paints a picture in this book that before the cataclysm, the world was totally different. We'll get to that. So I'm gonna move this over. I need to be able to peek at my chat. All right, there we go. I like that. So that's the intro. Here's where the book begins. Theory of the Earth, Book 1, concerning the deluge and the desolation of the earth. Remember the old printers were still using like a residual Old English, which was an amalgamation of French. It was a transitional period. A lot of times you're going to see that a double F is an S sound, and sometimes a single F is actually an S. That's why it looks so different. It's a transitional period. I mean, even at this time, I believe French was still being spoken in the English courts. Or shortly before the 1600s, I think they stopped the French. All right. Secondly, that Deucalion's deluge, in particular, which is supposed by most of the ancient fathers to represent Noah's flood, is said to have been accompanied with a gaping or disruption of the earth. Apollodorus saith in Book 1 that the mountains of Thessaly were divided asunder or separate one from another at that time. And Lucian in De Diceria tells a very remarkable story to this purpose concerning Deucalion's deluge. He is referring here to the ancient belief of the Greeks that some mountain ranges did not exist before the Great Flood, and that mountains were very suddenly made in the tumult A bunch of upheaval, subsidence, all kinds of chaos happened during the cataclysm, which we know of. In the biblical material is Noah's flood. In the Greek version, it is the flood of Deucalion. Now, Deucalion's flood is a Greek memory of the biblical version, coming from the same deal. We know that Deucalion actually means new wine sailor. And in the book of Genesis, we find out the very first thing Noah does is build a vineyard and make wine and get drunk after the flood. We know that. We also know that in the Greek version, Deucalion's wife was named Pyrrha, which means red, like red wine. So there's a lot of crossover. It's not really the subject matter here, though. For some ages after the flood, as all antiquity tells us, these were the first houses men had, at least in some parts of the earth. Here, rude mortals sheltered themselves as well as they could from the injuries of the air, till they were beaten out by wild beasts that took possession of them. The ancient oracles also used to be given out of these vaults and recesses underground. The Sibyls had their caves. After the flood, this is where mankind basically resided. After the great cataclysm, men were confined to the caves. And there's evidence that in anthropology, we may have misidentified many of the survivors of this cataclysm and attributed to them a history for which has baffled other researchers who are trying to figure out the origin of the Cro-Magnon. The Cro-Magnon may not have died out near as far back as we have been led to believe. Now, if I was to switch over onto my uniformitarian kick, I'm not on that today. I'm on my Graham Hancock kick today. But on my uniformitarian kick, you already know I'm going to go through all the relative and absolute dating methods. I'm going to show you that they're all BS. They're all based off assumptions. But we're not going to get into that today. This is painting a picture that after the cataclysm, men lived wherever they could, which was the caves of the earth, which gives us, this is in the past, but it gives us a pretty fair picture of the future. In the book of Revelation, it says a cataclysm is coming. And it's going to reset society. And in that cataclysm, it literally says in the sixth seal that the people of the world are going to go hide in the mountains, the hills, and the caves and crevices of the world and try to hide from the face of God or whatever the cataclysm is in the sky. Sun's going to go dark and the moon turns red as blood as giant rocks fall from the sky. So, same picture. So, concerning the Great Flood, it's talking about Venus. 'Tis a remarkable passage that Saint Austin, this would be Augustine. This is a short version for Augustine. A passage that Saint Austin, De Cividia, Book 21, Chapter 8, hath preserved out of Varro. That would be Marcus Varro, a Roman historian. He saith that about the time of the great deluge, there was a wonderful alteration or catastrophe that happened to the planet Venus, and that she changed her color, form, figure, and magnitude. We have heard this before in Archaics. There are other historians that talk about this great change in Venus as well. So Virgil, first century Roman poet, Virgil wrote, "Such days the newborn earth enjoyed of old, and the calm heaven in this time tenor rowled. All the great world had then one constant spring, no cold east winds such as our winters bring." So Virgil's describing the pre-cataclysm world in that there was no winter, there was no cold, there was no period of cold. It was like a paradise world, constant spring. And this is basically the idea of the pre-flood. This is the antediluvian climate. We have talked about it many times. This is the vapor canopy world. The ancients supposed that in the reign of Saturn, who was an antediluvian god, as I may so call him, time flowed with a more even motion. And there was no diversity of seasons in the year. But Jupiter, they say, first introduced that when he came to manage affairs. Okay, again, it's talking about antediluvian. This is the pre-flood vapor canopy world. According to this, time was more smooth. What separates time? Day and night, and how many days there are in a year. Time was more smooth, so it wasn't like today. There was a fundamental difference. No diversity of seasons in the year. No winter, no fall, no spring, no summer. It was a golden age. The vapor canopy world was one constant temperature all year round. The coming of Jupiter was the great flood. When he started managing affairs, it was after the world was reset, humanity was wiped out, started over, and Jupiter is Zeus. As also that there was no rainbow before the flood, which goes upon the same ground, that there was no variety of seasons, nor any rain. We've covered this in Archaics before. In a vapor canopy world, there is no rain. It's already very humid. And the mesosphere, the mesosphere is like an ocean above. We have a mesosphere today, but it's basically empty. It's just a bunch of suspended water droplets. But at one time, the mesosphere was almost solid water. That solid water increased the air pressure beneath it. Every single morning, a mist rose up from the ground and watered all the herbage, all the plants, watered everything. It was like a real thick dew. Every morning this happened, and maybe even in the evening, but it didn't happen during the day. And of course, the rainbow. Of course, underneath such a canopy, the rainbow would have never been seen. We already know about the vapor canopy condition. The sun was never seen. This is why when the Great Flood happened, like the ancient American traditions all claim that the sun was born. And then it started the sun ages. The first sun was the water sun. Why? Because it was born out of the water. The sun had always been there, but it had been above the canopy. You couldn't see it. The sky lightened, so there was a sun above the canopy, but you couldn't see the sun. When the canopy collapsed, causing the Great Flood, then all of a sudden the sun was born. When the sun was born, the ancient American systems adopted the sun age calendars. In Egypt, they claim Horus, son of the sun, was born. In Sumer, a new god appeared, just like in Egypt, at the very end of Egyptian pantheon, the period of the gods. The last Egyptian god to be introduced into the pantheon was the sun. You would have thought it was the first, but it wasn't. Horus was the final god introduced into the Egyptian pantheon, just like Utu Shamash. In Sumer and Babylonia, Utu Shamash is the final god that is introduced into the Sumerian pantheon. Why? Because he was unknown until the vapor canopy collapsed. So, I think we have more about that here. Let's see, natural. As of the irregular situation it hath now, standing oblique and inclined to the sun or the ecliptic, whereby the course of the year is become unequal, and we are cast into a great diversity of seasons. He is describing here that the Great Flood, prior to the Great Flood, time was smoother and the vapor canopy was intact only because the north-south axis was perpendicular to the ecliptic at 90 degrees. That's what he's describing in this book. This is 307 years ago. He is describing that the reason we had no seasons and the reason why the year was so perfectly uniform, and later he says it's 360 days, was because the axis was perpendicular, meaning the world spun perfectly. This was his model. This wasn't Isaac Newton's model. This was this guy's model. He's literally saying that the axial perpendicular axis at 90 degrees kept everything in the world perfect. and created two hemispheres. And the two hemispheres were like Gardens of Eden with a torrid zone in the middle. The torrid zone was the equator. And according to his model, before the flood, the equator was so warm, nobody lived there because it was just uncomfortable. But it was paradise just north of the equator and south of the equator, all the way to the poles. It was paradise. This is his model. And he claims that the Great Flood tilted the world 23 degrees. And since the tilt, we've had winter, summer, fall, and spring. This is his model in Theory of the Earth from 1716. It would by the equality of the libration necessarily have its axis parallel to the axis of the same ecliptic, both its poles being equally inclined to the sun. And this posture I call a right situation, as opposed to oblique or inclined. That's why it's called the obliquity of the ecliptic. The 23.5 degree inclination toward the sun of our axis today is called the obliquity. It's the obliquity of the ecliptic. This is what he's referring to. I say a continual rain, foreseeing the action of the sun, which raised the vapors, was at that time always the same, and the state of the air always alike, nor any crosswinds, nor anything else that could hinder the course of the vapors towards the poles, nor their condensation. When arrived there, 'tis manifest there would be a constant source or storehouse of waters in those parts of the air, in those parts of the earth. He's describing a vapor canopy. He's just not saying vapor canopy, but he's perfectly describing a vapor canopy and the climatic conditions beneath that canopy. I think was the established order of nature in that world. This was the state of the antediluvian heavens and earth. All their waters came from above, and that with a constant supply and circulation. For when the cloud of vapors raised about the middle parts of the earth found vent and issue this way towards the poles, the passage being once opened and the channel made, the current would be still continued without intermission. He's now referring to a sky cycle, how the vapor canopy continually replenished itself to stay above. It's pretty deep concepts for a book 307 years ago. Moses tells us that the rainbow was set in the clouds after the deluge. Those heavens then that never had a rainbow before were certainly of a constitution very different from ours. Absolutely. Under a vapor canopy, you wouldn't see a rainbow because the spectrum of light from the sun would never be clearly visible, because the vapor canopy is a mesosphere that obscures the sun. Daytime, there would be a brightening of the canopy. At nighttime, the canopy almost crystallizes into like a lens. At nighttime, the watery canopy, which becomes very cold because the sun is gone. Once the sun is gone, the water droplets condense. Once they condense, they form like a magnification effect. From the surface of the ground, looking through the canopy, the stars would look like you would just climb up to the nearest hill and touch them. And this is exactly what we find in ancient traditions. They believed that the stars were their brothers and sisters, and that they could actually be ascended and reached to if you can get to a prominence that was high enough. They also believed that the stars sang to them at night. There was some type of music or harmony that was coming through the canopy at nighttime when the stars were magnified. These are very old traditions. We've talked about some of them in Archaics. But the rainbow would have never been seen underneath the canopy. But once the canopy collapsed and there was blue sky and the sun was out, and then there was clouds in the lower atmosphere, not up in the mesosphere, but in the lower atmosphere, then the prismatic effect would be seen, and like we see today, rainbows. Let's see, and 2 Peter 2, second epistle, chapter 3, verse 5, doth formally and expressly tell us that the old heavens, or the antediluvian heavens, had a different constitution from ours. The earth was divided into two hemispheres, separated by the torrid zone, which at that time was uninhabitable and utterly unpassable, so as the two hemispheres made two distinct worlds, which, so far as we can judge, had no manner of commerce or communication one with another. The southern hemisphere the ancients called Antichthon, the opposite earth, or the other world. And this name and notion remained long after the reason of it had ceased. Just as the torrid zone was generally accounted uninhabitable by the ancients, even in their time, because it really had been so once, and the tradition remained uncorrected when the causes were taken away, namely, when the earth had changed its posture to the sun after the deluge. It had an erect posture at 90 degrees, 90 degrees perpendicular from the ecliptic. Then it changed its posture at 23.5 degrees. Now we have obliquity. This is what his model is literally telling us, that the plane tilted, and ever since the tilt, the skies have been different, and it's treated our world differently. And he's describing that the world still has a trace of the torrid zone down, check this out, across the middle belt of the world. Well, the middle belt of the world has been noticed by many people. Today, it curves a little bit, but there is a strip around the world that does not go along the equator. It goes around a strip at about 17 degrees around our world. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? It is a strip of deserts that encircle our world. So this could have been the original torrid zone pre-cataclysm. Let's see, where was I at? Southern hemisphere, ancient did call Antichthon, uninhabitable. Okay, posture of the sun. This may be looked upon as the first division of that primeval earth into two hemispheres, naturally severed and disunited. So, according to him, according to his model, based off all the old books and records that he had come into contact with, he believed that the pre-flood world was two worlds separated by a middle band where the sun actually passed over above the canopy. That was just too hot and too miserable for anybody to live in, and it separated two temperate areas that were like garden paradises. Two separate halves of a world, to where the inhabitants of each considered the others to be the other world, or a totally different world. The pre-flood world was bifurcated. Maybe it might have been 100 different civilizations, but it was only two areas that were inhabited. This is his model. So, we must appeal to antiquity or the opinions of the ancients, for I know no other guide but one of these three: scripture, reason, and ancient tradition. And where the two former are silent, it seems very reasonable to consult the third. And that our inquiries may be comprehensive enough, we will consider what the Jews, what the heathens, and what the Christian fathers have said or determined. So he's basically just showing his method of analysis. His first method of analysis is appealing to all things of antiquity, is that he's going to go by the opinions of the ancients, and he's going to appeal to the authority of Scripture. Now, I don't believe Scripture is very authoritative. You guys already know my position. I'm not a Christian. I came out of that world. The biblical material is of late antiquity. It is not ancient, as I've shown many times, but it still has good material in it because it was culled from many sources. So it's an amalgamation of the best material that was available to the Jewish scribes and the rabbis at the time of its composition. Now, he's going to appeal to the authority of Scripture. He's going to appeal to the traditions and writings of the rabbinate and the Jews, and he's going to appeal to worldwide ancient traditions. This is his method. This is his method in composing this work. I make this remark in the first place that we may understand the true sense and importance of those phases and expressions amongst the ancients when they say paradise was in another world, which are not to be so understood as if they thought paradise was in the moon or in Jupiter or hung above like a cloud or a meteor. They were not so extravagant, but that paradise was in another hemisphere, which was called Antichthon, or another earth, or another world from ours, and justly reputed so because of an impossibility of commerce or intercourse betwixt their respective inhabitants. Thank you, not of this world. Your ears must have been burning. We were talking about you in the underground admin chat today. Nothing bad. Let's see. The Greeks and Romans divided the ages of the world into 3 periods or intervals, whereof they called the first the obscure period, the second the fabulous, and the third the historical. The dark and obscure period was from the beginning of the world to the deluge. Dark and obscure, it was vapor canopy. What passes then, either in nature or amongst men, they have no records, no account, by their own confession. All that space of time was covered with darkness and oblivion. Now, here's the beautiful thing about it. This was published before 1849 through 1860. The reason that's interesting is because that's when the libraries of Ashurbanipal, Assyria, the Assyrian and Sumerian tablets were found in multiple different libraries in the Near East. It was before the Ugaritic Rashamra texts were excavated. It was before the texts of Lagash, Nineveh, Uruk. It was before we found any of these tablets. He's already talking about these things. And those tablets have revealed many pre-flood events, as we've discussed in Archaics. All right, first catastrophe of this world. When it perished in a deluge of water, for the vault did break, as we have shown at large. And by the dissolution of and fall of it, the great deep was thrown out of its bed. You hear what he said here? The great flood was literally caused by the vault, the vapor canopy, collapsing. The catastrophe of this world, when it perished in a deluge of water, for that vault, the water that was held in the sky, did break. And we have shown at large, and by the dissolution and fall of it, the fall of the vapor canopy, the great deep was thrown out of its bed. It was a total pole shift. Totally done. Broke the sky. This is the day the sky fell. It is known as the Great Flood. And now, we're going to go back real quick. And now, we have covered generally what his book is about. Now, he's long-winded. Don't get me wrong. There's whole passages that are boring as hell because he's very long-winded, saying the same thing over and over and over, but from different ways. Different vantage points. That's what he does. But with the next page, we begin our discourse. I'm going to show you what he says about the normal method of calculating ancient ages according to chronologists, and his argument that it shouldn't apply to the Bible. It's amazing. It's amazing. And you'll see very quickly how this crosses over into the deceptive publications of Graham Hancock. He begins, "Yet I know some have thought this so improbable and incongruous a thing that to save the credit of Moses and the sacred history, they interpret these years of lunar years or months. And so the ages of these patriarchs are reduced to much what the same measure with the common life of man at this time." See, there was a raging, he's not the first one to mention this. There was a raging controversy 300 and 400 years ago that lasted all the way up to the Civil War period, 1860s, maybe even the 1870s. I've showed you several different chronologists that have reported on this. These chronologists, as I'm going to show you again, have reported that in order to understand how you interpret Egyptian texts, when it gives you impossible numbers, like 35,000 years, like 15,000 years of the Turin Papyrus, like Egyptian papyri that tell us that certain events were 9,000 years ago, like Plato was told by the Egyptian priests at Sais, these chronologists were all in agreement that it was lunar years the Egyptians were publishing. And they cite the ancient Greek authors who told us this. This isn't Jason making this up. The very same ancient Greek authors that Graham Hancock has cited over and over and over in his Graham Hancock has totally not cited what they said about those time periods, because Graham Hancock, all he wants you to do is think that all these time periods are referring to the Ice Age. And they're not. This isn't a mistake. It's a lie, as I'm going to show you, because he knows the truth. He read the same ancient Greek authors I did who talked about how to interpret the Greek time periods and the Egyptian time periods. This man is throwing forth the argument that even though it is the chronological practice to apply 30 days as a year in Egyptian reckoning and in the other civilizations, he's arguing we can't do that with the Bible because the books of Moses were not written in a lunar language. Moses only counted solar years. This is his argument. And I agree. I agree for totally different reasons. I agree because the books of Moses aren't even old. And by the time the books of Moses were written, well after the 7th century BC, the solar calendars had already taken over from the older lunar ones that had fallen into disuse. Same reason as I've shown you in Archaics, that a solar zodiac was employed because everybody lost faith in the moon after something happened in the 7th century BC. So he continues his argument here. We are bound to take notice of and confuse that opinion which makes the years of the antediluvian patriarchs to have been lunar, not solar, and so would bear us in hand that they lived only so many months, as Scripture saith they lived years. Recently, I told you guys on my birthday how old I was in Egyptian reckoning. Do you remember how old that was? On my birthday on June 9th, in Sumerian Babylonian shars, I told you I'm 19,358 shars old. A shar is a turning of the stars. But in Egyptian reckoning, I'm not. In Egyptian reckoning, on June 9th, I was exactly 645 years old. That's Egyptian reckoning. I'm 645 years old, according to ancient Egypt, the ancient Egyptians. So he's explaining here to his colleagues in the Royal Society that listen, I know that we're supposed to go by Egyptian reckoning and go by 30 days equals a year, but we can't do that when we're looking at the patriarchs of the pre-flood world. This guy was a staunch religionist. He was a Christian. He's defending the integrity of his religious book. Jeffrey Bailey, 19,358. You're old. 19,358 shars means I'm 53 years old exactly. All right. Secondly, if lunar years were understood in the ages of the antediluvian patriarchs, the interval between the creation and the deluge would be too short, and in many respects incongruous. There would be but 1,656 months. What did he say? What did he say? If we used the Egyptian reckoning, there would be 1,656 months. From the beginning of the world to the flood, which converted into common years. This shouldn't be a surprise to anybody in archaics. This is to new people. But you guys already know, all the ancients were in agreement. The pre-flood world was 1656 years. He's making a good case that we have to stick with the solar calendar in interpreting the books of Moses. And I agree, because not for the same reasons he says. I agree because the books of Moses are not old. They are a composition of the Alexandrian period. They are not from 15 centuries BC. The patrons of this opinion must needs find themselves at a loss how or where to break off the account of lunar years in sacred history if they once admit it. Again, he's still making his case. He's making his argument to his colleagues at the time because it was so prevalent only to use the lunar years in ancient texts that have these impossible numbers. They all use the lunar system because they were told to. Even in the days of Plato, when Solon heard 9,000 years from the Egyptians, in the days of Plato, when he relayed that story, another scholar lived. His name was Eudoxus of Cnidos, and Eudoxus of Cnidos corrected Plato and said the Egyptians count a year as 30 days. And Graham Hancock knows about this citation. I'm going to show you. If they extend their lunar account to the post-diluvians too, they will still be entangled in worse absurdities, for they must make their lives miserably short. Again, he is still making his case. It is in making his case that I am making my point. He has to convince the scholars of his time that his chronology is accurate, but for totally different reasons than the archaics model. He's got to tell the scholars of the time, you cannot judge the numbers of the pre-flood world as concerning the books of Moses, the book of Genesis, using lunar reckoning. It doesn't work. It's an actual solar period of 1,656 years. And I agree. 100%. But you'll say, it may be, these lunar years are not to be carried so far as Abraham neither. Tell us then where you'll stop and why you stop at such a place rather than another. If you once take in lunar years, what ground is there in the text or in history that you should change your way of computing to such a time or in such a place? All our ancient chronology is founded upon the books of Moses. where the terms and periods of times are expressed by years and often by genealogies and the lives of men. Now, if these years are sometimes to be interpreted lunar and sometimes solar without any distinction, he's making a great case. He has literally proven, he proved it to me, and all his argument is this. His argument is very simple. We already know all the ancient civilizations and ancient texts that have to be reckoned in lunar years. But when it comes to the book of Genesis, we have to abandon that because Moses only used solar reckoning. His argument is perfect. And the way he itemizes his arguments are excellent. But in doing the argument, he literally proves what I've shown you over and over and over from other books, that the standard unit of measuring all these impossible ages in ancient literature was lunar. For they cannot show in any part of Scripture, new or old, that these lunar years are made use of, or that any computation, literal or prophetical, proceeds upon them, nor that there is anything in the text or context of that place that argues or intimates any such account. Again, I am agreeing that this man in 1719 made his case, and his case is simple. The texts of the ancient world are measured in lunar years, but we cannot do that with the Bible. I don't believe the Bible's a supernatural book. I'm just agreeing with him because I know that Bible, and you guys know I know it. And he's right. There's no evidence anywhere in the Bible that lunar reckoning was a thing. All the time periods are given in solar years. But it means something different to me than it means to him. To him, it means it's the word of God, it's infallible, and it sets the Bible apart from all ancient texts. To me, it means the Bible is an Alexandrian composition, just like I've showed you guys, that the Old Testament was written not even a century before the New Testament was composed. It's not old. It's not ancient at all. And I've given all the arguments for that. The data sets are in my Dark Scriptures playlist if this is something that interests you about the origin of the Bible, where it came from, when it was composed, and everything that it entails. If you want to know about the Old Testament or the New Testament, my playlist covers it all. The Dark Scriptures playlist. So, what is this guy talking about? What is this guy talking about? This is the Sacred History of the Earth, 1719. Let me show you what he was talking about. Because there were many men in his day that he had to convince. Many scholars in his day that also had the ear of the king. And he couldn't just publish anything. He had to make his case. In the Royal Society, yeah, they had to make their case. In those days, listen to me, guys, this is very important. You guys think it's a light thing? You think it's a light thing that Jason Reza Giorgiani doesn't want to defend the integrity of what he has told the public is true? David Icke's done the same thing on these exact same chronological issues. That Graham Hancock, Randall Carlson, Matt LaCroix, Billy Carson, Jimmy Corsetti, they're all guilty of the same thing, and a whole bunch more people that follow them. Like Jay Anderson's done the same thing, copying chronological errors and then not wanting to defend yourself about them. You think it's a light thing? In these days, when these books were written, a man couldn't get away with just writing a book and putting it out there in the field. You know why? Because in the Royal Society, other guys would read that book, and if they disagreed with it, they'd write their own book. And then the society had they had books that defended the integrity of people's positions. This is the way knowledge was built for centuries. These weren't debates to where you just get on a podcast and debate. No, These men did their homework. They lived in libraries. They wrote whole books backing up their arguments, and then they submitted them to the society. And sometimes they were called into huge congregations, and the society would argue over the positions of both books before the conclusions were entered into the minutes of the Royal Society. This was how knowledge was disseminated, what was accepted to be true, what was abandoned, what was funded, what was defunded. This was the procedure. So what I'm doing now in 2026, calling people out, isn't any different than people were doing 300 years ago. No different whatsoever at all. People demonize me. They hate my guts, but they're not looking at the facts. Why are the facts relevant? I'm going to show you. It's not a light thing to gloss over the entire recorded human experience, to paint a picture of something that happened in 12,000 years ago. Getting everybody to look at a date so far back, it ignores everything that happened in the last 5,000 years. Because as long as you ignore the last 5,000 years of your recorded history, as I've documented right here in Archaics, in all my published books, 1,200 videos, you ignore all this history, you'll never know what to expect in the month of May of 2040, which is creeping up on us now. And then in the early November 2046, you'll never know this. Why won't you know it? Because those dates are attached to absolutely perfect mathematical cycles that have remained unbroken for 58 centuries, as I've shown. I've made my case over and over and over. You'll never know what's coming if you don't study what's happened. But if you follow Graham Hancock and all his copyists and all his followers, you ignore the entire historical record to jump to a hypothetical event of a rock falling from space 12,000 years ago, and you ignore everything that our predecessors spent their lives recording. If you're new to my channel, you don't even have a clue what I'm talking about, but there's a chat right here full of people that have reviewed this data. The historical record is packed full of events, and that when you spread those events out on a timeline with a calculator, they show us exactly what to expect in 2040 and 2046. That's why I'm always telling you guys it's too effing late to be polite. I don't care about none of these men's feelings. I don't care about none of their followers' feelings. But I'm going to keep on with my frontal assault, because I know it draws the attention of more and more people trying to figure out why the silence. There's a lot of people wondering why these guys have remained so quiet. Damn, man. Dude with an 8th grade education, steadily calling you out, steadily publishing books, steadily getting the support of the community. And you just totally ignore that he is just shit all over your research. You haven't even defended it. It's embarrassing, guys. Long livers. 1722. The author of this book probably knew the author of the other book. It was a small society back then. Long livers right here, 1722. What does it say? And I found at last with great satisfaction that the most ancient computation of days for years amongst the Chaldeans, and of months for years amongst the Egyptians, warranted by the testimony of writers of the greatest credit. That's why that guy spent so much time making those arguments, because he knew the scholarship of his day already knew the secret. All these long Egyptian dates were actually very short, because they weren't years, they were months. And that's how the Egyptians factored time. Again, long livers. And said, maintained that this long course of years of the ancients was regulated by the lunary movement of 29 or 30 days. Solon was told that Atlantis story unfolded 9,000 years earlier. He was told this about 600 BC. Graham Hancock tells you, do the math. 600 BC plus 900 years is 9600 BC. That's the only evidence Graham Hancock has ever asserted from the historical record that this cataclysm happened at that time. But Graham Hancock's not telling you what he also knows. There's a long list of ancient Greek writers alive at that time who told us that those 9,000 years were 9,000 moons. And this was even known and published in Plato's day. I'm not picking on Graham Hancock. I'm just calling a spade a spade. That's all I'm doing. From reading Lactantius and Plutarch on the life of Numa, a Roman king, the second king of Rome, might be insinuated that the year of the ancients was no longer duration than one of our months, or at most one of our 4 seasons. The Chaldeans and the Arcadians followed this use, as well as some other people of whom Macrobius speaks in the 12th chapter of his first book on Saturnalia. Here's one of my favorite chronologists of all times. I've talked about him a lot on my channel. This is John Jackson. This is from the year 1752. There's the Roman numerals. This is chronology. He's a chronologist. 1752, John Jackson, Royal Society. This is what he wrote. Having treated fully of the most ancient years and shown that the original year of all nations was lunisolar and consisted of 360 days, and how the solar and lunar periods were by degrees improved and perfected, and by intercalations made to correspond with each other. Before I proceed to the Egyptian antiquities and chronology, it is necessary to show that in the most ancient times preceding the Noahic flood and after it, the Egyptians reckoned the reigns of their fabulous gods and demigods by years of single lunar periods only, or of 30 days. 30 days. This reckoning, which was peculiar to the Egyptians. This is also John Jackson, 1752. I shall prove hereafter. Yet he observes very truly that the Egyptians reckoned a month for a year in the first ages of the world, and in the reigns of their first fabulous kings, whom they called gods and demigods. This computation enables us to understand perfectly the oldest Egyptian chronology, and to reduce it to a very near and exact conformity with the sacred chronology of Scripture. For Diodorus says, this is Diodorus Siculus, this is somebody who Graham Hancock cites extensively in his books. Diodorus Siculus was studied by Graham Hancock. This is what Diodorus says. For Diodorus says, some of the most ancient kings of the succession of the gods reigned above 1,200 years apiece, and that this appearing incredible, some supposed that the motion of the sun being not known in the first times, the year was described by the revolution of the moon. And with this do other authors of good credit agree, who assure us that the old Egyptian year was lunar. Who assured us that the old Egyptian year was lunar. It must only be observed that the antediluvian year containing but 360 days and above mentioned calculation must be rectified in that respect. And then the 9,000 years of Vulcan's reign will make just 75 sorry, or 750 years. It's exactly what I've told you in Archaics. The 9,000 years of Solon concerning Atlantis is 750 years, which puts Atlantis exactly where it's supposed to be in the historical record. The invasion of the Sea People's Federation attacking the city of Athens. Would you please ask Graham Hancock Did the city of Athens get founded in the Younger Dryas period? Is there a city of Athens that historians have never heard of that existed in the Ice Age? Because that's what the Atlantis story is about. It is the war against the Athenians. It's so dumb. So dumb. Which seems indeed a little disproportionate to the reigns of his 6 successors, which together can amount to no more than 450 years. However, this way of computation will reduce this and the other extravagant numbers we meet with in the Egyptian history within some bounds of credibility. Yeah, man. That's right. Jamie Robbins, that's right. When the sun is hidden by the canopy, it only makes sense to count time by the moon. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, man, it's so dumb. Guys, listen, I'm not picking on Graham Hancock. This man has made millions. It should be criminal that your son is an executive. He's a decision-making executive at Netflix. When you propose Ancient Apocalypse and others get denied, they get denied because they chose your Ancient Apocalypse. Yeah, it's not nepotism. It's a coincidence. It's just a coincidence that his son worked at Netflix. It's also a coincidence that his son was working at Netflix at that time. It's also a coincidence that his son had decision-making power at Netflix at that time. It's all coincidence. It's not nepotism. Now, so this isn't just me saying this. There are scholars with credentials far exceeding my own that all agree that the 9,000 years of Solon concerning Atlantis was only 9,000 moons. Thomas Bradderween in 1340, 700 years ago, in 1340, wrote that Plato's 9,000 years was actually lunar reckoning. Historian Robert Argod, about 1340, historian Robert Argod wrote that 1340 BC was about the time of the Atlantis story and that it was the Sea People's invasion. Pierre d'Ailly wrote in 1370 AD that the 9,000 years was a lunar reckoning system. 1572, historian Pedro Sarmiento Galboa wrote that the 9,000 years was in reference to a lunar counting system. In the year 1577, Augustine Zarate, quoting Eudoxus, supported the 9,000 years being lunar periods, not solar years. Eugenius Philolethes in 1721 wrote on Babylonian and ancient Greek calendars that they counted the moons. Sir Isaac Newton in 1740, in his Chronology of Ancient Kingdoms, wrote that the Egyptians exaggerated the 9,000 and had been caught doing this many times. John Jackson, 1752, in Chronological Antiquities, Egyptian years were months. Yeah, man, can't make this shit up. You just can't make this shit up, guys. It's everywhere. It's everywhere. So let me show you this. Let me show you this. 1995, Fingerprints of the Gods, page 544. This is Graham Hancock's bibliography. In Graham Hancock's bibliography, he literally states that the Egyptians were using a solar count system. Why would you overtly say that? You wanted your readers to believe the Egyptians were counting years of 365.25 days. And he puts a little bibliographic citation there to give it authority. Oh, look, guys, not only did I say this, but you can look it up. So Jason of Archaics decides, okay, let's see what Graham's source is on that. And I go to his bibliography for chapter 43, notation number 18, because he made it look really authoritative. you can imagine my surprise when I find Graham Hancock citing himself. There is absolutely no evidence that the ancient Egyptians ever, he stressed ever, he italicized ever confused years and months or styled one as the other. So that's the first thing that caught my attention. Wow, you're not even citing a source. You put a bibliographic citation in there, and then you wrote the citation. Yeah, unheard of. It's unheard of, guys. No academic can get away with that. It's unheard of. So there is absolutely no evidence that the ancient Egyptians ever confused years and months or styled one as the other. Then he's got this ibid here. Okay, do you see where it says IBID? IBID page 4, note 2. Okay, this is an instruction to the bibliographic reader to look at the above reference as a source. So I look at the above reference. What does it say? It says Manetho, page 5. Well, that's really interesting. So his opinion that there is absolutely no evidence that the ancient Egyptians ever confused years for months or styled one or the other actually comes from his reading of Manetho, who is an Egyptian scholar who put back together most of the Egyptian histories. That's really curious, guys, because survey says that's a lie. Right here in yellow, the very first citation I have for you right here in yellow is Manetho. What did Manetho say? He said, the year I take, however, to be a lunar one, consisting, that is, of 30 days. Yeah, Graham Hancock lied. The lie is so pervasive because he said no one, there's no evidence that anyone. So let's not accuse Jason of archaics, of just nitpicking one citation. Let's go ahead and look at Eudoxus. Here's Eudoxus right here, who lived in the days of Plato, who wrote the Atlantis narrative. The Egyptians reckon a month as a year. Wait a minute. What about Diodorus Siculus? Because Graham Hancock loves to cite Diodorus. Well, let's look in Diodorus Book 1, Section 26. It says, concerning Egypt, it was customary to reckon the year by the lunar cycle. But Graham Hancock says there's no evidence from the historical record that Egyptians ever confused a month and a year. But that's not what Plutarch says, because Graham Hancock cites Plutarch too. Plutarch in Lives wrote, the Egyptian year was 1 month. So quit blowing up my emails talking about Jason just because you disagree with Graham Hancock. That doesn't make him a liar. Bullshit. Bullshit. Eusebius. Oh, wait a minute. Did Graham Hancock cite Eusebius? Absolutely he did. Eusebius wrote the Egyptian year was a lunar month. Don't take my word for it. Do your own homework. Lactantius, Herodotus, Macrobius all confirm Egyptians counted years as months. What? What? So why the lie? The answer, the same ancient authors that date Egyptian history in the tens of thousands of years are also used by Graham Hancock to promote his Ice Age dating for Civilization X, for Younger Dryas Impact Theory, for Atlantis. He pushes Egyptian history and a technologically advanced society way back in the past in the Ice Age. In order to get those dates, he has to ignore what actual real historians and real chronologists have published. And according to this, they've been publishing it for 2,000 years. And Graham Hancock tells you, not just in the body of the text, but in a bibliographic citation, that there's no evidence from the historical record that the Egyptians ever claimed a year was a month. Don't tell me he's not lying. I'm not trying to hear it. Graham Hancock's argument concerns the Turin Papyrus. Hancock, citing the Turin Papyrus, wrote that the period of Egyptian history was a total of 36,620 years. The Turin Papyrus dates to 1150 BC, from the reign of Ramesses IV. So, look at the chart. This is what 620 BC looks like way over here. It's gonna be way off the chart. The page isn't even big enough. Well, that's that white circle. So that's that white circle. Look at this yellow circle. What's the yellow circle? Here's 2026. Here's 1000 AD. Here's 1 BC, 1 AD, which is 2026 years ago. Here's 3000 BC. 51 centuries from the start of Egypt is the entire historical record. The yellow circle is the entire known world's historical record. Graham Hancock's version, based off his misinterpretation of Egyptian reckoning, has this white circle going way off the chart. The Turin Papyrus is Egyptian and must be calculated by the lunar system mentioned by so many ancient writers who state a year as 30 days. Manetho, Diodorus, Eusebius, Eudoxus, Plutarch, Lactantius, Marcus Varro, and Macrobius. When applying Egyptian lunar reckoning, the 36,620 years is only 3,051 solar years. And this shows that the Turin Papyrus places the start of the gods at about 4000 BC, really close to the start of the Anno Mundi calendar, 3895 BC. Can't make this shit up. Hancock, citing Diodorus Siculus, wrote that the period of Egyptian history was a total of 23,100 years, and Diodorus correctly informed his readers that the Egyptian lunar year was a period of 30 days. But Hancock makes no mention of this. Here it is again. That yellow circle is 51 centuries. Here's Hancock's misinterpretation of the Egyptian data. The big old white oval. Here's 23,500 BC. Hancock cites Diodorus in his bibliography. He and many other ancient writers wrote that the Egyptians counted a year as 30 days. Here it is. When applying ancient Egyptian lunar reckoning, the 23,100 years is only 1,925 solar years. And this shows that Diodorus placed Egyptian history exactly where scholars place Egyptian history today. Scholars for the win, Graham Hancock for the loss. Graham Hancock, citing both Manetho and Eusebius, wrote that the period of Egyptian history was a total of 24,925 years. And Eusebius correctly informed his readers that the Egyptian lunar year was a period of 30 days. But Hancock dismisses this and claims, of course, they did no such thing. What? Hancock then provides a bibliographic citation giving off the impression that he is stating a fact, but the citation only refers to himself. Hancock cited Manetho, Eusebius, and Diodorus, and all three of these ancient writers wrote that the Egyptians counted a year as 30 days. Hancock ignored them all. He cherry-picked what he wanted you to believe, and he took the real interpretive data away from the public so they wouldn't discover the lie. When applying Egyptian lunar reckoning, the 24,925 years is 2,077 solar years. And this shows that Manetho and Eusebius aligned Egyptian history perfectly. It's crazy. Whole thing's so crazy, guys. Right here in the middle, this little triangle right here, this is the time period for Egypt, the Harappan civilization of Pakistan and India, Sumer, later Babylon and later Akkad and Babylon, the Pumapunkan civilization of Tiahuanacan civilization on the Bolivian Altiplano in South America, in ancient China. Here's when all these most ancient civilizations in the historical record first appeared. Later, because of a reset, Babylonia, Elam, the Hittites, and Tiahuanaco appeared in 2000 to 1800 BC. That's all way over here. The yellow circle is Graham Hancock, putting civilization back here at 9600 BC based off that miscalculation of the Egyptian lunar reckoning. Hancock attempts to use Atlantis dating era to support his Civilization X theory for the Younger Dryas. Well, he can theorize all he wants that there was a civilization in the Ice Age. He can't use Plato to do it. He can't use Diodorus to do it. That's my point. He can't use Lactantius or Macrobius. He can't use Strabo. He can't use Eusebius. He can't use Plato, Solon, Eudoxus. Graham Hancock can't use anything from the historical record or any ancient writers to support his case. His books are packed full of references of ancient authors, giving it basically a gloss of veracity. But when you actually look at the source materials, it all falls apart. Like I said, Graham Hancock can theorize whatever he wants to about the Ice Age, but there's nothing in the chronological history of the world that supports his case. That's my area of expertise. And according to Jason Reza Giorgiani, I'm right. According to Jimmy Corsetti, I'm right. According to Graham Hancock, Randall Carlson, and Billy Carson, I'm absolutely correct, because thus far I am correct by default. Yeah, if you're going to be a player in the field, but you're not going to defend the integrity of your position, then I win by default. You can take that to the bank. I'm more than willing to debate any one of them on these topics, but I know that debate is never coming. Hancock dismissed the fact that the Egyptians count a year as 30 days, as told to us by Eudoxus and all these ancient historians. And Hancock completely glosses over the fact that the entire Atlantis Plato-Solonic narrative is about a war against Athens during a period of Poseidon worship in the Mediterranean, when copper was prevalent in being cast as brass and bronze, and iron utensils were just now being introduced, during a period of chariot races and horse sacrifice, during a period of strangers from the West invading by sea, the Sea People's Federation. Every element of Plato's narrative happened in the 13th century BC. We didn't have any of that in the Ice Age. It's so dumb. So dumb. This is how stupid it looks. This is the small circle is the human historical record. This is the historical record right here. This is Graham Hancock's fantasy record right here. This is the record right here that all these copyists from Jay Anderson and all that ilk, all these content creators, they're just copyists. These aren't real researchers. These are people who have copied the Graham Hancock narrative. This is their model here, and it completely falls apart. Completely falls apart when you go by Egyptian reckoning. This is the Atlantis. Atlantis is the greatest argument they have for Ice Age. It's the greatest one. The second argument they have is equally stupid, and I'm about to address that right now. There's only two arguments that push anything in myths, traditions, fables, historical record, anything of human convention. There's only two arguments that all these people have to date anything to the Ice Age period. The first one I just completely dismantled, and that is the Egyptian lunar reckoning answers the key to human chronological systems that have been misapplied by Hancock and all his followers. The other one. I'm just going to show you a few charts. We're not going into a lot of detail because I've already got videos that completely collapse that whole narrative about how ancient the solar zodiac is and how it was recently designed, and that the ancient Egyptians didn't even know a Leo constellation. To them, it was the sickle. And when Hancock tries to use the Sumerian Babylonian one, it's even worse because the Babylonians didn't have a Leo lion. It was the great dog. I'm going to show you. That's the only two arguments that all these researchers have that dates anything to the Ice Age period, and that is the Atlantis story and the key of Egyptian reckoning, which is ignored. That collapses all that. And the other thing is the zodiacal dating, because Graham Hancock claims that the Sphinx is 10,500 BC because the Egyptians modeled the Sphinx as a lion to copy Leo at the vernal equinox in 10,500 BC. It's absolutely stupid. Right here in Conroe, Texas, we have a Taco Bell that faces due east at the vernal equinox every year. By Graham Hancock's reasoning, Taco Bell was founded in 10,500 BC. It is amazing. Let me show you. It blows your mind. It blows my mind every time I think about it. Taco Bell's old. So dumb. So dumb. So, in the interest of fairness, this is Graham Hancock's book, Fingerprints of the Gods. I don't want to misquote him. He's literally saying that the Sphinx in Egypt is a lion made by the ancient Egyptians to be a symbol of the constellation of the solar zodiac, Leo. Because the Sphinx faces east and it's pointed directly east for the date 10,500 BC vernal equinox. This is Graham Hancock's position. It's right here in his paper. It's right here in his book. So, just going off this data right here, I have two presentations on my channel, both of them 3 hours apiece, where I am completely giving you what the scholars, PhD academics, one guy wrote his 40 years of researching the solar zodiac. He wrote his PhD thesis on the zodiac. And this is what he found. And this is what the conclusions are of almost all these academics who have studied the solar zodiac. Do you see that little circle? Do you see that little circle? That little circle right there represents 450 BC to 100 AD. Right here on the timeline is where we're at. We're right here, 2025, 2026. That little circle represents 450 BC to about 100 AD. You know what happened during that little circle? 450 BC Babylonian zodiac developed from the older Mul-Apen, which started its development 700 BC of 18 constellations, the Chinese independent zodiac, Greek from Babylonian zodiacs, Egyptian from Greek zodiacs, India from Greek zodiac, to full Aries through Pisces zodiac in the 1st century Anno Domini. Totals 600 years to maturity in the text Tetrabiblos and Almagest of Ptolemy. 600 years of solar zodiac development. That's what this is, this little circle. Now, Graham Hancock's version is that this big circle represents when Egypt in 10,500 BC, or whatever civilization was there, pre-Egyptian, built the Sphinx and faced it due east. Because in 10,500 BC at the vernal equinox, it would have been directly pointed, Sphinx would have been directly pointed at it. And he's using precessional dating, which is based off the solar zodiac. The problem is before this little circle here, there was no civilizations anywhere in the world that even understood or knew anything about precession. nor did they even have, before this little circle, they didn't even have an Aries through Pisces zodiac. And the constellation Leo wasn't even a lion before this circle. Full maturity of the solar zodiac is 10,640 years after Hancock's 10,500 BC date for Leo in the Sphinx, the vernal equinox alignment, and 10,300 years before Egypt even had a zodiac. Most people don't even know that. Egypt didn't even have a zodiac till about 450 BC. And that's only theoretical. They still haven't found one. They just believe that it existed. Yeah, 450 BC, guys. Hancock's 10,500 BC date for Leo in the Sphinx vernal equinox alignment is 10,300 years before Egypt had a zodiac, before Egypt had a Leo, before Egyptians even learned the significance of the vernal equinox. Yeah, scholarship will tell you quick that in 300 BC, every civilization in the world still had different, they varied up to 15 degrees on exactly where the vernal equinox even was. Yeah, nobody had really just located, it had never been standardized where it was located. So these facts alone collapse Hancock's Sphinx dating. The stars where the constellation Leo are were not regarded as a lion to the ancient Egyptians, but the sickle. So going by Graham Hancock's reasoning, the Sphinx shouldn't even look like that. It shouldn't. It should look like a giant pole with a sickle hanging off the end of it. But that's not what you see. You see a Sphinx. Graham Hancock is absolutely in error. It's a terrible mistake. That's not even a mistake he can come back from because he put it in all of his books. Hancock's 10,500 BC date is 7,500 years before the start of any recorded civilizations and 10,050 years before the beginning of the modern zodiac development. Listen, guys, this is 8,000 years of no written records. This is 8,000 years of no written records, 8,000 years of no constellation Leo, 8,000 years of no lion in the sky for the Egyptians. This is 8,000 years of a blank slate. This is my point in archaics. In the chronological histories of the world, we have a massive amount of data. How do I know? I've given you 1,200 videos, and some of them are 3, 4, and 5 hours long. I have massive data sets on the chronology of the ancient world all the way up till today. That's how I know. But every bit of this is skipped over by Graham Hancock and all his copyists because they're all looking too far back in history to an event that either did or did not happen. It does not matter. Doesn't even matter if there was a younger Dryas impact, because it has nothing to do with any of the historical record been preserved by multiple different authors from ancient times all the way up till today, having no connection whatsoever to any event in the Ice Age. It's too far back. I don't care if there was an Ice Age or not. It's too far back. Younger Dryas impact, I don't care. It's too far back. I wouldn't care if a black hole opened and spit the earth out, and then, I just don't care. Nothing in the Ice Age has any relevance to the human historical record as we have it preserved today. Nothing. It's too far back. It's too far back. So I'm not shying away from any controversy at all, man. I don't give a damn about none of these dudes. These aren't the only ones. These aren't the only ones. They're not the only ones. You've seen their faces before. I care about none of them. I don't care about this dude that always talks about Randall Carlson, always talking about a rock falling from space, and it's the answer to every ancient anomaly in the history of the world. I don't care, man. To me, he's getting too old to even talk about what he's talking about. They need to put him on a shelf somewhere. He needs to be like one of those little trolls that sit in people's front yards so people can look at him and know he's there. But we don't need to listen to you. I'm tired of hearing the same old shit. Broken record. His buddy Graham Hancock, the only evidence Graham Hancock has ever produced, is the Atlantis 9,600 BC and the Sphinx being Age of Leo. Those are the only two pieces of information that Graham Hancock in all his published books can ever even link the Sphinx to the Younger Dryas period. Both of them completely dismantled in archaics. He's not just wrong, he lied. Jimmy Corsetti, I can't even believe he's on the map. If it wasn't for making the great mistake about the Rishak structure and this barf parrot right here, this is a barf parrot. The rest of these are Dunning-Krugers. You already know what a Dunning-Kruger is. It's like Freddy Krueger. They'll slash you up with a bunch of lies. A Dunning-Kruger is somebody who is putting themselves, in my interpretation of Dunning-Kruger, is somebody who is putting himself as a teacher to the public, but they're literally discussing things for which they know nothing about. They're Dunning-Krugers. This is not a Dunning-Kruger. He's actually a pretty knowledgeable guy, and it's because he's talked to so many people all over the world. He's heard all the different perspectives. I am not putting Joe Rogan in the same as these other guys. Joe Rogan's not a Dunning-Kruger. He's a barf parrot. A barf parrot is one who gives Dunning-Krugers a platform. Now, don't get them confused. I've got memes on all over Archaic's universe. I've got memes that show Dunning-Krugers and barf parrots. Don't confuse the two. Yeah. The Dunning-Krugers can be barf parrots, but barf parrots stand alone. They're not Dunning-Krugers. Most of them aren't. Oh, this is that polymath you guys keep telling me about. This is that guy that's supposed to be super intelligent. Yeah, but I gave him his shot. I called him out publicly and I sent him an email and he ghosted me. And that's all good. All of them have ghosted me. They should ghost me because the facts are not on their side about the stupid Atlantis shit. This is my email to Jason Reza Giorgiani. And now that I've looked up some of his other beliefs, I'm like, oh man, this dude here. Yeah, he's another David Icke. I'm not trying to hear that shit. This guy here. Yeah, he's not going to debate the Atlantis stuff because he knows his version of Atlantis is some Helena Blavatsky. It's the same shit G.G. Young and Dark Journalist parrot. Same shit. It's just dumb. None of it comes from Plato's narrative. It's all some weird, esoteric, Theosophical Society, Golden Dawn, and Besant bullshit. Yeah, man. So dumb. What are we doing here? Yeah, man. So we're not. Yeah, so this right here was discouraging, but then again, I understand now. I understand. I get it. We'll never be able to prove nepotism, but that doesn't mean I have to be quiet. This is Graham Hancock's son. It's just a coincidence that the man is an executive at Netflix. It's just a coincidence that he was an executive at Netflix when his dad, Graham Hancock, submitted Ancient Apocalypse to be considered. And everybody else had their shows and their ideas for documentaries shelved. Yeah, it's just a coincidence that Graham Hancock was accepted by Netflix for Ancient Apocalypse, which I understand is a multi-million-dollar deal. Yeah, but it's not nepotism, because if it was nepotism, that multi-million dollars now becomes a criminal offense. So, yeah. You don't want to give me a Netflix special. I will be roasting people. I'll be putting people in their place if I ever get a Netflix deal. I promise you. So this is Graham Hancock's Ancient Apocalypse Wikipedia page. He caused a bunch of bullshit. Academia is pissed off at him because in Ancient Apocalypse, they interviewed archaeologists about Göbekli Tepe in some other places in Malta, and they cut. You know how they do it. Man. They cut the film and they doctored it up, and they basically they made those archaeologists to convey things that they really weren't trying to convey. Yeah, that's the type of dude Graham Hancock is. Yeah, you get real archaeologists in Malta and at Göbekli Tepe to talk to you. When you're a pseudo archaeologist, you're a sociologist. You got a 3-year education, a BA as a sociologist, but you've got educated professionals in their field talking to you. And you cut and paste their shit and make them look like idiots. They were pissed. It's right here on the wiki page. Started a whole controversy about that. That's the type of guy Graham Hancock is. Yeah, man. And just so you don't think that it's a coincidence, Sean Hancock is just somebody else. And he's not related to Graham Hancock. According to the wiki page, the series was produced by ITN Productions and released by Netflix on November 10th, 2022. Hancock's son, Sean, is a manager at Netflix responsible for unscripted originals. I didn't make anything up, guys. I didn't make up shit. Yeah, it's sad, man. It's sad. It's so sad. So I took a little criticism on X, but I don't care. I blocked him. Stupid ass dude. But I posted this on X. This is incredible. I asked Grok. Grok is Twitter's AI. I asked Grok. There are numerous authors and content creators claiming an advanced civilization existed and was destroyed 12,000 years ago, like Graham Hancock. But in 30 years of research into old books, I have never found a single historic text prior to 300 years ago that mentioned the existence of any advanced civilization 12,000 years ago. Can you list any old text from which such an idea emerged? Grok responded, the primary and essentially only, that's Grok saying that, and essentially only ancient textual source for the specific idea of an advanced civilization destroyed around that time frame is Plato's dialogues, Timaeus and Critias. We've already dismantled that bullshit. Holy shit, that's it. And I have so thoroughly shown that the Plato text concerns 9,000 moons that not a single person will debate it. The latest to pretend he hasn't been called out on this is Jason Reza Jordani, who has steadily promoted the Atlantis narrative. He's got a PhD. Like I said, I'm never impressed by these acronyms, by these little titles. So hundreds of articles, videos, and published books all claim this is a fact, and yet the entire historical record is silent. Listen, guys, some of you are discouraging me about calling David Icke out, but David Icke has promoted this Younger Dryas series. David Icke has promoted the Atlantis is 9,600 years BC. David Icke is very well aware of the Archaics research. David Icke's made no public corrections. Let's not stop there. Let's not stop there. Jay Anderson's still on X promoting all this bullshit, and he's really aware of my shit too, because a year and a half ago, I called his ass out for taking some of my stuff and putting it behind his paywall. Y'all remember that? Jimmy Corsetti is very well of my research, but guess what? No one's made a public correction. Why hasn't Randall Carlson, who looks like a level-headed guy, actually looked at the Atlantis data that I produced and said, hey man, Graham, can we talk to this guy before the rest of our house collapses? Can we at least talk to this guy on this issue? No, man. Graham Hancock believes himself to be untouchable. Absolutely. Graham Hancock has not addressed any of this, and he knows this very well. He knows I have been on his heels for 4 years now. So it's not that these guys don't want to debate. It's even deeper than that. None of them have even, you know how much face they would save? Do you have any idea the profound amount of respect that they would receive from the community if they just did their own? They don't have to involve me. If they just did their own video, assessed all the data that I provided, and actually publicly said, you know what, the dude might have a point. That's all they would have to do to save face. Not even that. Not even that. Guess what else hasn't happened? Lix Friedman, Patrick Bet-David, Andrew Schultz, Joe Rogan, none of these who have given all these men platforms, none of these have once asked, hey man, I heard you got some badass data and that nobody wants to debate you on it, and yet everybody's talking about it. Can you come show my community what you're talking about? Can my community take a gander at that and see if you made your case? None of them. My point is this. My point isn't Jason of Archaics is a badass. I already know I'm a badass, but not for intellectual reasons. I got an 8th grade education. I'm just well read. I'm very well read. But anyone from my community can take my data and bring it on their own platform, and still there will be radio silence. So my point that you need to understand is it's not about the information I'm bringing forth. It's not about the fact that I'm not getting invitations. It's not the fact that nobody's going to do any corrections on their own theories. That's not even the point. The point is that the Younger Dryas narrative is more important to the intelligence agencies that structure and organize all these so-called truthers and all these so-called platforms. It's more important for the general public to believe in a fantasy 12,000 years ago, because as long as you're looking to an event 12,000 years ago, real or imagined, you're going to miss everything you need to be paying attention to in the last 58 centuries. There's no other conclusion I can make. There's no other way to process this, because there's no way to understand how large platforms wouldn't have a field day with this. Holy shit, dude out of prison with a controversial history, can't even pronounce words right, covered in tattoos, gets out and has data that shuts everybody up, but nobody wants to talk about it. Yeah, that shows that this is agenda driven. So I'm not saying Graham Hancock made a mistake. I'm calling him a liar. And I have the receipts. That's my presentation, guys. That's it. I got a badass song to close this out with. Yes, I do. Oh, I got something else to show you real quick. It's pretty funny. Yeah, man. Share my screen again. So we've been through this before, though. Those in my community, have you already seen this? So one of Graham Hancock's arguments about the Ice Age and stuff is the fact that old maps from 500 years ago show no ice on Antarctica. They show, so Graham Hancock is going to gaslight you into believing two things at the same time. This is incredible. Nothing has ever survived in the human historical record. No writings, nothing from 12,000 years ago. Nothing. Except maps that show Antarctica ice-free, that date from the Ice Age, which are copies of 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 copies. I can't even copy enough. Because 12,000 years would require copies going, so many copies would have had been made. There's no way they would have ever remained the same, and yet they are. They are almost perfect representations of what Antarctica looks like below the ice cap. 2 miles of ice. They got it right. Now, in the Archaics model, you already know there was no ice on Greenland. We've already proven there is no ice on Greenland, and the Lost Squadron even shows us that 263 feet of ice pack appeared in 50 years when those World War II planes landed in 1942 and were excavated in 1992. In 50 years, they were found 263 feet below the ice, perfectly preserved. So we know that the ice caps come and go super fast. But Graham Hancock wants you to think that 500-year-old maps showing ice-free Antarctica date to the Ice Age. It's absolutely ludicrous. What the suspension of disbelief required to accept such a tenet is it's unfathomable. To me, it's like Graham Hancock thinks you're a dumbass. Yeah, that's the only way I can look at it. It's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. So why would they lie? Why the lie? Why the agenda? Why have us looking as a collective 12,000 years into the past? Because of this chart right here. That's why. Because this chart shows the Phoenix history in red circles. It shows Nemesis X history in black circles. It shows the Anuna chronology in the gray in the middle, 600-year epics. It shows the Mayan Bactans and the Mayan long count, which ends in 2046, right there in the yellow bars. It shows the Jubilee counts. It shows the 138-year Phoenix phenomenon. Right here is the human historical record. And if you knew it, you would know what to expect on May 16th in 2040. You would know what to expect on November 2nd or 3rd, depending upon what hemisphere you're in, 2046. Once you know the history of 58 centuries, it has predictive value. Now my presentation is over. I got that out of my system for a while. Oh, and by the way, I am writing a book on all of this, including all of this data and a whole lot more on Graham Hancock's. So I'm doing full citations from all of Graham Hancock's books. I'm showing you that the man is a fraud. From the beginning, he has been a fraud. I can't accuse him of working for an intelligence agency, but I can suspect it. I can sure suspect it. Nobody makes critical mistakes like this and survives and is still pushed by mainstream unless he is a part of a greater agenda. There's no way. There's no way, because the mistakes in his books are glaring. And as I've shown in my presentations, it's easy to dismantle Graham Hancock's theories. So there has to be a much greater agenda at work here that's pushing these things. So that's what's going on. Now that's my presentation. At least I think it is. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I pretty much covered all my bases. But I am going to check out with this badass video. First time on YouTube ever. You're going to like this one. And I will holler at you guys later. Much love. And you can get with my moderators. The emails were posted earlier. But we still got tickets for the beach party in September, San Diego. Also, they got tickets for the Dublin, Ireland. That's next month. And I will holler at you guys later, because now I'm getting hungry. Talking about Graham Hancock made me hungry. Later, guys.
Ladies and gents, gather around the fire sail of ancient lies, where Hancock waves his white hair like a flag of surrender. I shape shifts into a lizard with a deadline, and Jimmy Upsteady flips maps like bad pizza dough. This ain't history, it's a grift symphony. Let's roast up! Graham Hancock, old silver fox with a Netflix check, preaching about lost cities while your facts are erect. 9600 BCE, that's your magic number. You hack, younger dry is coming, buddy, that's just whack. You cherry pick myths like grapes from a vine. Ignore the data, sell books for a dime. Atlantis sank cause your timeline's afloat on waves of bullshit, keeping suckers afloat. Randall Carlson's your bro, hammer in hand, smashing real science like it's grains of sand. But when the ice melts and truth starts to thaw, your empire crumbles, bow down to the floor. Charlatans in the spotlight, peddling dreams for the fee. Hey, Hancock, upsetty, liars degree. Reptilians and pyramids, aliens from the stars. What's your evidence? Empty jars on Mars. Chill for the shekel, twist history's thread. Wake up, sheeple, these wolves want you dead. Roast them, toast them, burn the whole damn crew. Pseudoscience circus, we're coming for David Icke, turquoise tie and a lizard grin. You're banned from YouTube? Nah, that's just spin. Only truth tellers get the boot. You whine and cry, but RKX is screaming, so by your rules he's alive. Children of the Matrix, more like kids in your scam. Biggest secret's a fact, you're a one-man sham. Sitchin' fanboy, Anunnaki gold rush. Pushing fall of Atlantis like it's holy hush. 9600 BCE debate, RKX your fraud, or hide in your books, applaud your own applaud. Pacifist pose of calling out Donnie Trump while your wallet's the real shape-shifting chump. Charlatans in the spotlight, peddling dreams for the fee. Hancock, upsetty, liars degree. Reptilians and pyramids, aliens from the stars. What's your evidence? Empty jars on Mars. Chill for the shekel, twist history's thread. Wake up, sheeple, these wolves want you dead. Roast them, toast them, burn the whole damn crew. Pseudoscience Eddie the clown with the glow flip. Bright insight, more like dim-witted clips. Mud flood myths and Tartaria tales so tall. Yo, Jimmy the janitor sweeping up the fall. Hancock's your godfather, Ike's the Uncle Weirdo. All three of you grifting off the unconvinced fear. No peer review, just Patreon please. Selling salvation in 4K decrees. But the dates don't add, the commas don't crash. Your Atlantis is a puddle splash. Back to Graham like in Hancock at the rally roar. White hair flapping like a ghost from the shore. Magicians of the god, you're the trick finger of God knives to defeat Pavel Jago. Pyramids align to your greed, but carving dates laugh at your scholarly bleed. Corsetti chimes in with his upside down spin. Ike nods along, let the grip begin. You're a trio of tumbleweeds in the true desert drive, blowing smoke signals through the credulous sky. RKX called it chill dating just in. Time to pack up the tent. Carnival's there!